the gift of life, the gift of hope, for the gift of mercy. Thank you that mercy came running for me and for us. So Lord, pour out your mercy on these words. May these words of mine, meditations of my heart, be pleasing to you, O God, my rock and my redeemer. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So I've heard it said that professional basketball is 10 men in need of rest, watched by 20,000 people in need of exercise. Think about that for a minute. And worship, I kind of feel like worship is a little bit like that. That you got people up here working really hard, and people out there just kind of spectating, right? That worship seems like a spectator sport, but it shouldn't be. Worship, I want to change our view of worship. That worship isn't a spectator sport. Worship is an activity. Worship is an action. Worship is something we do together. So the two things that I want us to remember during this month of preparation as we move into this new experience is two things. One, worship is work, and worship is work, and work is worship. Okay? Say that again with me. Worship is work, and work is worship. And the second thing is attitude is everything. Worship is work, and work is worship, and attitude is everything. And I think if we can remember these two things, especially when we get frustrated, and I think we have the best chance of making this whole worship-work experience work. Worship-work experience. We can make this worship-work experience work. Does that make sense? Yeah, I said that. Worship-work experience. That's what we're calling this, a worship-work. And we can make this worship-work experience work if we remember that worship is work is worship, and attitude is everything. I know that's not making any sense yet, but here it comes. So the foundation for this idea that worship is work is worship, and attitude is everything comes from John chapter 4. And Jesus meets with he encounters a Samaritan woman. They're at a well, it's noon, it's really hot. And Jesus and this woman Samaritan woman have this conversation together. And during this conversation, they talk about a lot of stuff. They talk about her relational status, which is complicated. They talk about water, the difference between running water and living water, and that living water is going to explode through him. And then they talk about worship. And she's Samaritan, and Samaritans have a different view of worship. They're sort of, they're like the Jewish people, but they're not really Jewish people. They're sort of splitters, I guess you might call them, or separatists from the Jewish movement. They worship the Jewish God, Yahweh. They worship the one true God, but instead of worshiping in Jerusalem at the temple, they have their own temple on a different mountain. And so they have this different view of worship. And Jesus, in this conversation, says this: "Woman, believe me, a time is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. See, you Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know. For salvation is from the Jews. Yet a time is coming and has now come when, get this, true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For they are the kind of worshiper the Father seeks. God is spirit, and his worshipers must worship in spirit and in truth." And that's what we're after, worshiping in spirit and in truth. Now, I gotta tell you, I had some awesome visuals for this sermon this Sunday. And unfortunately, all the components haven't come for our new TVs and screens, so we can't see it right now, but I just want you to imagine, people at a sporting event, okay? And we're at a rock concert, because I had this whole montage video of people at a rock concert, at a sporting event, and they're screaming, they're yelling, they're jumping, they're high-fiving, and they've got their faces painted. I mean, they're going crazy. This is the kind of worship that we should be having. This is what true worship is, worshiping in the Spirit. And so let me tell you about my little worship work experience. A couple weeks ago, last month, I think, I got the privilege, I had the opportunity to go to the Orlando Magic's opening basketball game. And I got to go with Brian and his grandpa, and it was awesome. And for me, like if you're going to watch the Orlando Magic starts at 7:05, so you turn on TV at 7 o'clock, maybe see some player introductions and national anthem, and that's really how your experience of watching the game begins, right? But not when you go to the game. Like for me, going to the game, like it's like watching the game, the whole game experience began the moment that I got into Ryan's car and we left his driveway. That's when, for me, the experience of going to the game started. Then we went to his grandpa's house, picked his grandpa up, and it's always fun to see the interaction between grandpa and grandma, and they're fun people. And then we drove to the basketball game. And the basketball game is an hour away in downtown Orlando, and so part of the experience is wondering, okay, how are we going to get there? Where are we going to park? And then we parked, and then we had to walk 3 or 4 blocks, and there's a lot of party going on because it's open night, and there's music being played, and people are saying hi, people are wearing their Orlando Magic jerseys and stuff like that, and I'm kind of amazed because I've gone to a lot of pro basketball games. I have never gone to a pro black basketball game wearing shorts, t-shirt, and flip-flops. So that's just an awesome experience. In fact, I remember one game I went to see the Chicago Bulls down at the United Center. It was Martin Luther King Day, so it was an afternoon game, and it was bitter cold. In fact, my car almost didn't start because it was so cold after the game. So anyway, I was so glad to be going to this game because I'm wearing shorts and flip-flops and a t-shirt. Like, how great is that? So we get in, and this was a new experience. Ryan had the tickets, but they were on his phone, so I didn't have a ticket. Like, what if I lost him quickly? He's tall, so I could see him in that picture. The metal detectors, and I'm like, hey, I'm with him. And inside this gleaming structure of beautiful, huge windows and these escalators that go up really high. We go down to our seats, and then it's incredible. There's sound, and there's lights, and there's smoke, and there's fireworks, and there's music, just boom, thump, thump, and music. And there's basketball going on. People are shooting baskets, and like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. And so we were so excited. We find our seats, we sit down, and I think, okay, time to get some refreshments. So I go to get some stuff to eat, something to drink, and at Orlando Magic, they have the best thing ever. They have popcorn. Now, I love popcorn. Here's the thing. It's free refills of popcorn at the Orlando Magic Game. Man, I got my money's worth in the popcorn at the Orlando Magic Game. Now, everything else, I have to say, is not free refills, so just keep that in mind. But anyway, so watching, and then there's player introductions and the national anthem, and I think the woman that sang the national anthem sang on opening night when the Orlando Magic first started, like when she was 7 years old. That was crazy. And then just before tip-off, one of the coolest things I have ever seen at a basketball game, at a pro game, any pro sports, Nicholas Vukovic, who is the Orlando Magic center, grabs the microphone from the PA announcer, and he steps out on the court, and he says, you know, Orlando Magic fans, just want to say thank you for coming here tonight. Thank you for supporting us. We're going to try our hardest. We're going to do our best for you. And just want to say thanks for being a part of our experience and watching us play this great game of basketball. And I thought it was so cool because it was so heartfelt, and he had a cool accent. And anyways, then the game starts. So we've had all this experience already, and the game is starting, and then the game is awesome because the Orlando Magic end up beating the Cleveland Cavaliers. And then the game ends, and yet our experience still isn't over because we had to get back to the car, and then we had to drive all the way home. And so this whole evening of experience, that's what it was. And that's the kind of experience God wants us to have with worship. It's not just showing up, singing some songs, watching God preach, and reading some scripture. No, worship is the whole experience for us. It's putting these curtains up, and it's tearing these curtains down, and it's setting out these chairs, and it's setting up the sound system, and it's putting all the stuff back, and it's loading back the truck up again. The whole experience is worship. And so again, go back to the visuals that I had planned for you. These great images of people at a sporting event or at a rock concert, and they're excited, and they're passionate, and they're enthusiastic, and they're screaming, and they're shouting, or they're high-fiving, and they're waving their hands. This is worshiping in the Spirit, okay? This is the worship that God is after, that the Father is seeking. This is good worship. Now, unfortunately, it's not worshiping the right thing, okay? Now, I'm not going to get into with worshiping our rock stars or sports teens, if that's idolatry, not going to go there. Just want you to think about worshiping well and worshiping the wrong thing. That's the big idea that I want you to take away. So there's good worship, worshiping the wrong thing. And I'm afraid sometimes, or at least I'm guilty sometimes, of not coming with good worship. All right? Especially when our kids were smaller and I wasn't a pastor, and we'd be getting the kids in the car, and we'd be running late, and they'd be fighting each other in the backseat, and I'm like, hey, don't make me come back there, and we're going to worship Jesus Christ. You know, that's not good worship, or at least not a good attitude to bring to worship. Anyone else have that experience? I think a pictorial. But I've got two remedies for that, actually. Parents, listen up if you want to get away from that experience. Both kind of extreme. One is become a pastor, because if you're the pastor, you get to come to church as early as you want and be the only one in the car, and it's a very nice, peaceful time. So go for that. The other is this. So we did this for a whole year. We drove an hour for church. And now, there's nothing special about driving an hour for church, but we were driving an hour for church, and our kids were at their most potential for annoyances in terms of each other and parents and themselves. Like, we had 2 in grade school, 1 in middle school, and 1 in high school, and it was just an ideal time for them to pick and knit and just be jerks to each other. And so what we did is we drove an hour to church, and here's why it's extreme, not just driving an hour, but we were in the Chicago area, and we would listen to WXRT. Terry Hemmer, she's a radio DJ in Chicago. She had this great show on Sunday mornings called Breakfast with the Beatles. And so we would spend this hour in the car listening to awesome Beatles songs and Beatles trivia and celebrating Beatles birthdays. And by the time we arrived at church, we were so mellow. We were like, good day, sunshine, come together right now. Yeah, let's worship. And we had good attitudes for worship, because attitude is everything. So worshiping in the Spirit is all about the how we worship. And that worshiping in the Spirit is in here, how we worship inside, what we bring to worship. So that's worship. And so Jesus said that the Father is looking for people who will worship him in spirit and in truth. And so in the Spirit is the how we worship, the attitude that we bring to worship. And then the truth, that's the what we worship. And what are we worshiping? We are worshiping God. We are worshiping the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. That is the truth. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through him. So we can bring good worship for the wrong thing and bring bad worship, kids, to our good God. And what we want to do is bring good worship to good God. And we all have come here this morning to worship God in spirit and in truth. And if we don't worship with the right attitude, with the right spirit, then we are not the right kind of worshiper. We are not the kind of worshiper that God is looking for. God is seeking those who will worship him in spirit and in truth. And that's a problem, because the prophet Amos said this. Amos from the Old Testament, he said, this is the word that God gave him to give to his people. So God says, I hate. God says, I despise your religious festivals. I cannot stand your assemblies. Even though you bring me burnt offerings and grain offerings, I will not accept them. Though you bring choice fellowship offerings, I will have no regard for them. Away with the noise of your songs. I will not listen to the music of your harps. But let justice roll down on like a river, and righteousness like a never-failing stream. See, in the Old Testament, God's people were worshiping God the right way. They were doing everything right. They were bringing their offerings, they were bringing their sacrifices, they were bringing themselves, they were going to the temple, they were doing it all right. But they had the wrong attitude. Their inside was not aligned to the Father, because attitude is everything. And if we don't worship with the right attitude, we're not true kind of worshiper that the Father is looking for. So let's talk a few minutes about worship. What is worship? And when we think of worship, a lot of times we raising our hands and singing songs and cheering and woo-hooing maybe if we're at a sporting event. But there is more to true worship than just woo-hooing like that. Biblical worship is much greater, much deeper. In fact, there are at least 6 Greek and Hebrew words that describe worship. That we in English just use worship. There are 6 words that are translated into worship in English from the Greek and Hebrew. So we're going to look at a couple of them in the last few minutes here. So 2 of them, one in Greek is proskunuo, and the other in Hebrew is shachach. And you have to phlegm up in the shachach. So proskunuo and shachach. And proskunuo, we see in the Gospel of Matthew, the wise men came to proskunuo the baby Jesus, right? And so what did? They bowed down before the baby Jesus. And so proskunuo means this type of worship. They worship the baby Jesus. They bow down. They knelt before the baby Jesus. And that's the same thing. That's shachach is the same thing. And we see this in Psalm 95. Wow, it's reading here, isn't it? Psalm 95 tells us something very similar. And I lost my notes here. Here we go. And Psalm 95. Listen to Psalm 95. Come, let us sing for joy to the Lord. Let us shout aloud the rock of our salvation. Let's come before him with thanksgiving and extol him with music and song. For great is the Lord, great God, great King above all gods. In his hand are the depths of the earth. In his mountain peaks belong to him. The sea is his, for he made it. His hands formed the dry land. Come, let us worship and bow down in worship. Let us kneel before God our Maker. For he is our God. We are the people of his pasture, the flock under his care. So let us bow down in worship. Let us shachach in worship. Let us bow down before our God. So there's the sense of reverence, the sense of holiness, the sense of respect that we give. Acknowledgement. When we come to worship, we want to acknowledge that we are here not for ourselves, but to worship one who is greater. Amen? That's why we're here. And then the other type of worship, another type of worship is, in Greek, it's lachueo or abad. Lachueo in Greek and abad in Hebrew. In lachueo, we get the word liturgy from this word lachueo. Do you guys know what liturgy means? Or kind of familiar with that word? Sometimes in other churches, if you get a bulletin and they itemize everything that you're doing in the morning, stand here and sit here and kneel here and repeat after me and read the scripture and the Old Testament lesson and the epistle lesson. And, oh, by the way, do you know what an epistle is? It's the wife of an apostle. Thank you, Jim. Phil would have laughed at that when he said. So lachueo, liturgy. Liturgy is sort of the order of worship, the way it all lines up and works out. And so liturgy is really about work. It's the work for the Lord. Work and worship together. Serve the Lord. So Psalm 100 verse 2 says this. Well, Psalm 100. Shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord with gladness. And that word is this word liturgy, this lachueo, and it's work for the Lord with gladness. Come before him with joyful songs. Work for the Lord. Serve the Lord with gladness. Worship the Lord with gladness. And so worship and work is service. Worship begins with this attitude of gladness and joy. Now, I know sometimes it's hard to come to church when you're in pain. It's hard when life's got you down. It's hard when physically you're in pain or emotionally you're in pain. And yet we are still called to worship. We're called to come and worship the Lord with gladness. Now that doesn't mean that we're supposed to fake it till we make it. What this means is we need to prepare our hearts and seek the Lord before we even step foot in the worship center. We need to seek the Lord. And so this summer was a pretty rough summer for me. I mentioned before, but riding my bike, I hit by a van. a lot of bodily pain. Not a good way of starting summer. And so that inhibited the stuff that I wanted to do with my body over the summer. And so that was depressing. And then it was discouraging because I was in pain. And in fact, I'm still in pain. And then sort of things were falling apart with our denomination. And so that was a tough experience this summer. And then, church, we had a rough summer, amen. And now here we're turning things around. And so things were tough this summer and this fall. And there were plenty of Sundays when I did not want to go to church. I'm the pastor, we kind of have to, right? And so I would walk our dogs in the morning before church, and I would have to work to bring myself to be able to worship the Lord. I would have to work. And I would have to look for examples of God as I'm walking the dogs in the morning. So first I would thank God for the dogs. Like, hey, thanks, Lord, for your creatures. I thanked God that I could actually walk the dogs. I mean, just literally, Lord, thank you. Okay, yes, it hurts, but I thank you that I can walk the dogs. And then on our little half-mile walk around our neighborhood, I'd look for signs of God's presence in my life. And so, sun's coming up, I go, okay, that sun reminds me that God sent his Son to shine his light in my life. Amen. And I see the sandhill cranes. We have these neighborhood sandhill cranes, and they're weird, and they're beautiful, and they're loud, and they make me laugh, and then they make me laugh, and I would remember, yes, God loves me. Amen. And then I'd finally be able to come and worship. And so when times are tough, we do have to work at being ready to worship. So I invite you to work at getting ready for worship, because the Father is looking for true worshipers who work and serve and work in the spirit of the right attitude and in truth for the right thing. That's what God is after. That's who the Father is seeking. So let me ask you, is the Father seeking you this morning? Is the Father seeking you? Have you come to worship in spirit, the right attitude, and in truth, the right person, our Father? Amen. Let's pray. Lord, I thank you. I thank you for the opportunity to worship you. I thank you that here in our nation we have the freedom to worship. And I thank you that you have lifted us up out of the pit so we can worship you here in this place today. And I thank you for everyone who has come to worship this morning. They are worshiping you with the right attitude, and they are worshiping you, the truth. Thank you. I pray that as you lead us, that we will iron out the rough places, and that you will work within us and through us to bring new life to people who need to know you, want to know you, because you want to know us, you're chasing after us, and you're relentless, pursuing us. So may we be relentless, pursuing you, and worshiping you in spirit and in truth. Lord, thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Now, over the last couple Sundays, we haven't had the opportunity for